right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Irrational Confidence Podcast. We're talking NFL football, and the draft is over. The 3-day extravaganza is over. The teams, they got their new kids. They got those picks done. No one missed a pick this year. And the man who didn't miss a single pick during all draft weekend, my co-host, Fresh. Fresh, how you doing, buddy?
Haps, like you said, extravaganza is probably the perfect word for it. You know, seeing a bunch of guys work hard, get selected, get their name called at that stage. Um, it's just, did the GMs, did the scouts, did they put all the work in? Did they actually fully see everything they could? But now, you know, once you get your name called, it's on the player to perform. You've done all that work now. The guy saw you had talent, and now you got to put it in with the whole coaching staff and help your team win. So it's a kind of a bridge in the gap sort of thing now, where you celebrate, but now you got to prove that you're worth that and go, earn your money and play for your team.
Yeah, it's interesting because now we're going to rookie mini camp and all of the, kind of the off season at this time, and then 2-3 months from now we'll start having train camps open up, and we'll be rolling into another season here. So let's just hit the draft hard right now and go through it here. Fresh, do you have a team that you felt like, or maybe a couple of teams that you felt won the draft? I know that that's easy to say when we're playing quarterback from the podcast world.
I mean, I think the draft grade thing is funny. We'll know about like 2 to 3 years. I really want that really up. I think from the eye test of who was selected and how they fit, the Seahawks, the Colts, and the Browns crushed the draft in terms of what the value they brought in and where they were collecting picks. So hey, the Browns don't have many picks. They fall down later. They don't have that first round. They traded away that second round, or where are they going to get their value? And getting Tillman there in the third round, sort of carrying it on from there. Or what the Colts did. I know I have serious doubts about Richardson at quarterback, but the rest of that draft, whether it's Julius Brents, who was an amazing corner out of Kansas State, Josh Downs, a great receiver, Double A from Northwestern, Darius from uh, South Carolina, and a whole host of the rest of the guys they brought in there. They have a solid core. They really helped to rebuild that roster there in Indy. And then the Seahawks. I mean, when you got this many picks, it's kind of tough to screw it up, but they hit on every single one of them. And that team is now built around Geno Smith to really compete with the 49ers and the NFC for a spot in another Super Bowl.
Yeah, I love the Seahawks picks here. Like I have them as one of my winners from the draft. I didn't put like a grade on them. For me, I would give them an A grade. The fact that you got Witherspoon there, who is a phenomenal corner out of Illinois, and then now you sit there and adding to an already really good wide receiver core for Geno Smith, you add in Jackson Smith-Njigba out of Ohio State. Love that pick. And then the Seahawks doing everything. Everyone told me I was crazy when I told people prior to the draft. I was talking everyone. Zach Charbonnet. Watch out for his name to be called early. People going, he's a 4th-round grade, 5th-round grade. I love Zach Charbonnet coming out of UCLA. I love that pick for him. And then, take a look at very late. You got McIntosh out of Georgia there, especially to go with Kenneth Walker the third. 3 young stud running backs there that could really, really make a nice offense over there in Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, you bring the three of them; they all complement each other so well. And there's one thing we've all recognized the past few years, especially if you play fantasy football, that somehow the Seahawks running backs always get hurt. Um, and you really knock on wood that doesn't happen with these group, but they know they need a group of running backs, not just one. And the more you have, the more you keep rolling out there. They keep sparing each other, getting a play here, a play there, and they all keep building on each other, and that's where you become very successful. You need depth, and they finally have solidified that as a strong suit up there in Seattle.
Yeah, and then as a Browns fan, I really was happy with the Browns draft. I really was, and I'll talk about my hometown team there as well. Not having that first-round pick for the Watson trade, fine, so be it. Sending the second-round pick for Moore to the Jets, okay. Going into this draft, I had three or four names that I was hoping would be available to the Browns in the third round. One of them being Cedric Tillman. I also said Jalen Hyatt, who went a pick before Tillman there, and then Josh Downs as well, who you spoke about. But the fact that they got Dwayne Jones out of Ohio State right there in the 4th round, some people had talked about him being a first-round pick. Most people had him in the top 50 of prospects. I love the value that they got for him there. DTR, I know he's undersized. Give him a couple of years to develop. He's going to be a very nice backup quarterback. You knew I would not go through this whole podcast without talking about DTR fresh. So, and then
I still
Luke
think you
Whippler.
called that pick in. I still think you called that pick in, Habs.
I wish I had that type of sway in Berea. I wish I could had the direct line to Lou Groza Boulevard where I could call in and talk to the GM and the coach and all of them and say, hey, you need to take this kid. But Luke Whippler, I wish he would have stayed in our year at Ohio State. I think he could have benefited Ohio State a little bit more than what he did. But picking him up in the 6th round, I think he could be a nice developmental center. Nice draft out by the Browns. I'm very happy with what they have. One of the winners I had that you didn't, and I disagreed. I'm going to take this. I hated this team's first pick, and I loved everything else they did in the draft, and that's the Detroit Lions. I am not a fan of the Jahmyr Gibbs trade. I know Smith was traded. I thought you overdrafted Gibbs. He was a nice player. He's a back 1st round pick. The fact that you took him at number 12 was really, really difficult for me there. I think you could have found some value in a later round pick if you needed a running back there. Jack Campbell, though, nice linebacker out of Iowa there. Laporta out of Iowa. And then my boy, and again, there's no pressure on him. You could sit him for a couple of years. If Jared Goff balls out, do a really good job with him. Love Hendon Hooker going to Detroit Lions.
I mean, the Lions, I think I kind of agree. Gibbs, you hear these stories like, oh, this NFL team had him high ranked as well. They were going to come up and get him. And you're like, for all the years of not drafting running backs high, how does Gibbs become a top 15 pick? It's just, for values that doesn't understand. And that one really has a head scratcher for being that early. I could see maybe a 25 to 31 range grabbing him, but that high with other needs, hey, do your thing. They have their own type of guys there apparently in Detroit they want. I did not like the Jack Campbell pick that early as well. I thought that was a significant stretch. Their second round picks should have been their first round picks, and their first round picks should have been their second round picks. But they're building a brand there. Dan Campbell and that entire front office, they have something they want to build, and they think this is their time. But I kind of think that they maybe they got a little greedy, and it might come back to bite them by leaving the door open. They could have slammed it shut with 4 amazing picks, and they kind of got a little greedy with maybe overreached, and it could come back to bite them in the end.
Yeah, I feel like Jack Campbell got a kind of like benefit of last name of being a linebacker for Dan Campbell. Like that's why Jack Campbell got drafted that high. And the other team that I got to give a lot of credit for, and I hate that I have to give them credit for, is the Pittsburgh Steelers. The fact that you knew you needed offensive line help. You got Broderick Jones out of Georgia there. And then the fact you trade up to the first pick in the 2nd round and you take Joey Porter Jr. And that was just like the perfect pick for Pittsburgh. Then you take a look at what they got. They wound up getting Washington in the 3rd round, who a lot of people were saying was maybe the best tight end in this draft class. Dalton Kincaid wound up being the first tight end off the board. But then you got Herbig out of Wisconsin, that guy screams Pittsburgh linebacker as well. I love that pick from them. I think Pittsburgh fans will be very, very happy with their draft for a long time.
Well, you made the trade. The way you look at it is Chase Claypool, Joey Porter Jr. are going to be compared to each other from now on because that was the pick that the Bears said they sent off that 2nd round pick. They got Claypool. You sit there, you have people calling all day long. And if I'm the Steelers, like my phone's ringing off the hook. People want the 32nd overall pick, but Porter's right there. We need a quarter. He's a legacy. Like, why am I even answering the phone at this point? Like, this is the guy I want. I take him, and I'm so happy they did it. If they traded that pick, I actually kind of been kind of mad. I'm like, it's everything's staring you right in the face. It's a perfect fit. Take it. The Washington thing. Apparently, there's injury red flags. about his knees. A guy that they're worried about, a guy that big, and people wouldn't give him clearance until later. Very few teams gave him medical, thumbs up. That's the story that's out there right now, and why he was dropping so far. He's going to make 31 other teams pay, and pay dearly. Um, and I think Najee Harris is going to love running behind Broderick Jones in Washington. And then Herbig, his brother, already's on the team. He kind of fits that Watt mentality off the edge. The Steelers did a great job. Let the guys fall to them. And Mike Tomlin, I mean, the guy does not lose. And I have a feeling this draft is going to set up the depth of this future football team to go ahead and keep winning football games down the road.
Yeah. Fresh, let's talk about one other team before I want to go kind of flip to our side of who could have done better. We definitely probably need to hit on the Eagles as well, but I want to go over to Tennessee for a split second here. Saransky winds up being their top overall pick, where a lot of people thought that Tennessee could easily go quarterback. They're at 11, and they wind up kind of rolling the dice and waiting till the second round and get Will Levis. I really love their third round pick in Tajay Spears. I love him coming out of Tulane. I thought he was a really good running back. We saw a lot of him this year. We talked a lot of Tulane. You guys, if you're a Tennessee fan, go back in the archives, find some of the Tulane games we talked about, and you'll kind of understand why we like Tajay Spears coming out. But I felt like it was a simple draft for the team out of Nashville and Mike Vrabel, but I thought they did a good job. Maybe not a great job, but a good job.
The Skoronski pick, fantastic. And you come to think about it, they haven't really had a consistent number 2 to Derrick Henry. And Derrick Henry, as a physical phenom that he is and a beast that he is, you need, eventually the body wears down. Time always is going to be there, and you need some other guy to give him some plays off, spare him a little bit, help the flow of the offense. I think the Spears pick was a great selection. I had a feeling they were going to go running back somewhere in that draft just to have that extra guy, but getting an explosive player like that was good. The Levis pick in the second round, I have no issue with, because the expectation of the first round pick is not a problem. Now, the one thing I do have an issue with is Will Levis leaving the draft after the first day. And here's why. You use social media, use all the fame of the media and the lights and all the broadcasting of you eating a banana with the peel on it, you putting mayonnaise in your coffee, throwing from the 50-yard line underneath to hit the goalpost. You do all these things to get all this attention, all this fame when the lights are on, to promote you and make your own brand. But when the cameras are on you because you're sitting in the green room, then you get scared and you run away. Be confident. You're going to get selected. And enjoy the experience while they're in Nashville. Don't run back home when you realize, oh, I'm not one of the top 31 picks. Because you know what? I mean, it's just me. But if I'm a player on the Titans right now, I'm thinking, when the moment got tough and he wasn't one of the 31 players selected, he ran home. He left. That's what's going on between the ears of when the things get, and that's not even that bad of a situation, but you're sitting there and you run away instead of embracing it and being confident. I give Brian Branch so much credit. He stayed, and he got to walk across the stage. He didn't have to wait that long. It was like 5 picks into the second round. He got to enjoy the moment, and he got that time to experience the full thing. He didn't run away from the challenge. But, Will, you did. You're the quarterback. It's different from other players. You're the quarterback. When times got tough, you kind of hid, and that's the one thing I'm concerned about.
Brian Branch was pick 45.
So he waited, 13, 14 picks?
Yep, somewhere like that in the second round. So let's flip over there real quick, Fresh, to the Philadelphia Bulldogs or the Georgia Eagles. I don't know how we're going to rename them.
Athens Edge. As long as it's EA and then the power G as the middle and then the LES, I think that'll work out pretty good.
So the weird thing is, the question has to be, are you now I know you're going to always say I'm a Packers fan, but we all have a secondary team. My secondary team is always I'm a Browns fan first, but I'm a Buffalo Bills are my second favorite team. Is Philadelphia your second favorite now?
I mean, Green Bay's number 1, hands down. There's no competition there. Jacksonville's number 2. Jags number 2. Just look, I've worked for the Jags. I've been here. I lived here. This is Duval. The Eagles are still paying about Freddie Mitchell in 4th and 26. I will support them more often than not going forward. but it's going to be tough not to want to see them lose unless they're playing the Packers or the Jaguars because there's just so much great connection there to Athens.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that they've taken Jordan Davis one year at the D tackle spot and Jalen Carter the other, that's going to be
You're not
interesting.
running the ball. You're not running the ball on that defense. To run the football on that defense with those two tackles there. Nakobe Dean's going to take over middle linebacker. You're going to have Nolan Smith off the edge. I got a feeling they're going to slowly work in Keely Ringo. And you know what? One thing we said in our mock draft is that there's good and there's bad Keely. Sometimes he takes some plays off. Sometimes he works hard. What we're going to see, I think him going to Philly where there's other veteran corners and other Georgia players there are going to keep his mindset a little more focused. And that's going to be good for him. Same thing kind of with the Jalen Carter situation. But you're not running the ball in the middle of the field. And that's going to be pretty tough for Washington, for New York. Saquon, get ready for it. And then for what Dallas has, you're going to have to get past these two mammoth tackles.
Yeah. I think that people don't give enough credit to the Sidney Brown pick. I don't,
No.
I don't, and this is where like sometimes people who claim that they watch a ton of college football, like you watch your team and maybe one other game every single weekend, and that's a lot of college football, but you're not turning on a bunch of Illinois games. You're not sitting there looking back and seeing how amazing that Illinois secondary was this past year and what Brian Bielman had done with that team. That secondary, again, if you want to see, if you're an Eagles fan and you're listening to this and you want to kind of, hey, how good was that Illinois secondary? Go back and find like the condensed game footage of Illinois versus Michigan in the games at Michigan, where Michigan can't throw the ball all day long against the Illinois defense until the very, very end of the game. I mean, Michigan saved off an upset by the skin of their teeth in that game. So definitely very, very excited about that. Sidney Brown, I think he's going to be a name we hear later on in their career.
I mean, who would have thought we would have been talking about Illinois football having four players of their secondary drafted in the past two drafts, three this year, and then Carl Joseph, who's with the Lions, who has, by the way, Aaron Rodgers' last pass as a Packer he picked off. They produced a secondary, and Witherspoon came in as a 0-star recruit. The two Brown twins, one Chase and then obviously Sidney, were they were playing at prep school here in Florida. Nobody really knew who they were. They were 3-star recruits, got themselves worked up, went to Illinois. Brett Bielema and the Illinois program have taken these players and developed them into NFL superstars potentially, and developed them to college superstars. And that just shows there's something happening in Illinois that they're putting this thing through. But these guys are going on. And anyone, doesn't matter what recruiting star you have, you put in the work in a program and you get a chance to play, you have a chance to flourish.
Yeah. All right, Fresh. Whose draft did you not like?
First off,
I got one.
The Jaguars, I wanted them to do more. Like, this is your time to strike. When you have three brand new rookie quarterbacks coming into the AFC South, you have your window. Why don't you trade up, go get some elite players? Anton Harrison fell to them, I think, but in the second day two and day three, you have a load of picks. Move some of those assets and come up and get some high quality impact players. And they came away with a decent haul in the draft, but just going up and grabbing guys like that, being assertive in the draft is one thing I was kind of hoping they would do, and they just didn't get that far. They have a plethora of picks they brought in, but they didn't go out, I think, and maybe go target some legit guys and bring them in to really be extra pieces on that team to take the next step in the playoffs. Because right now, yeah, you're playing the AFC South, but your target window should be the Chiefs, should be the Chargers, should be the Ravens, the Steelers, the Bengals. You are playing at a different level if you want to compete in the AFC right now, and you've got to find the legit playmakers to make that happen. And that's one thing I think they kind of didn't. And it didn't help that the Cam Robinson suspension area came out like day one, and they had to probably pivot their draft strategy a little bit to go get a tackle to help replace because they're probably going to be missing him for a few games this season.
Yeah, I like the Harrison pick. I do like the Harrison pick at the back half of the first round. I'm not going to crush Jacksonville for that one. And, you take a look at some of the guys they took in the later rounds, and you're like, okay, like let's say Parker Washington pays off or Christian Braswell pays off or something like that. Great, wonderful. But I'm like you, man. Tank Bigsby. I'm not a Tank Bigsby fan. I know a lot of people were much higher on him than we were coming out of Auburn. I'm with you. You could have taken one or two of those number fives or number sixes and moved up in the third round and gotten one of the wide receivers that were still on the board. Like we said with the Brown stuff, Jalen Hyatt, Cedric Tillman, and Josh Downs, all three very good wide receivers who'd be a nice addition to the Jaguars. And really a nice addition in as a third receiver um for Trevor Lawrence. And all it would have taken is to move up a couple of picks because I want to say what Bigsby pick is at like 78, somewhere
Yeah,
around
and then you
there.
had like the Brenton Strange pick at tight end where like Brenton Strange, like Washington was on the board. They could have even traded if they're going to get a tight end. Why don't you put some assets to go up and get a Musgrave, which the Packers took, or a Kraft who was there, a Washington, and you go for Brenton Strange where you're like at Penn State. What I mean, you drafted a number two, a permanent backup. Like that was not an impact player who could become a lethal receiving threat. Just it's not like I like Parker Washington, I like the Antonio Johnson pick, but it's just like why didn't you go get some super legit ballers who could get him come into Jacksonville and supplant this team and take you to the next level?
Yeah, I'm sorry, he was 88th pick. He was the 88th pick, thanks Bigsby. But why wouldn't you jump up at least up into the 70s and get one of those? The other
Yeah.
team, I was not a huge fan of what their draft was, and that's the Chicago Bears, man. I I was hoping for more offense than what they got. I thought that this was going to be a surround. They put everything and anything around Justin Fields and see what type of quarterback that they have. Going with Darnell Wright in the first round, I'm not going to crush you for that. But again, you don't take another offensive player until you get to the fourth round. That's the thing I start to struggle with the Bears draft there.
Well, I think the Bears actually had done some stuff outside the draft. You go trade for DJ Moore. You have Claypool. You have Mooney there. You got Herbert at running back. You have your Cole Kmet, I think, and Tanya are going to be the two tight ends. So I think the biggest concern was the offensive line. So once Wright was there, others okay with that. It wasn't. I think they were pretty on point to really build some depth in the defense. But right now, I wish they could maybe a fourth round receiver, so I brought somebody in there and helped add that extra layer. But the keys right now have been handled Justin Fields, and it's time for him to show up.
One of the last picks of the fourth round was Tyler Scott out of Cincinnati, wide
That's right.
receiver.
Now, there were some other guys on the board where I was like,
Yeah. Yeah. And my other one, again, I feel bad like hammering this team or saying that they didn't have a great draft. I did not. It's okay because you don't have a first round. Your first pick is the last pick, or is one of the last picks in the second round. Is the Denver Broncos. So I don't know like how much you can hammer a team with when you don't have that type of draft capital. Getting Marvin Mims is a great pick. I don't hate Riley Moss either, but again, I'm walking out with five players and two of them are in the sixth and seventh round. This is why hindsight being 2020, you don't trade for Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I think that was a little tough one because you're limited draft capital, and you also, you had a first round pick after trading Bradley Chubb, but then you sent him for Sean Payton, so you're kind of living and dying with almost nothing. Um, and you're playing, and I think they basically was like, hey, we play in the AFC West. It's already be tough enough. Let's just sort of get through this year, see what we got, and then move forward to 24. Because they're so committed to Russell Wilson right now that it's living and dying with him. Another draft that I had that was kind of rough. The Giants. But you're looking for playmakers in offense, and you go Deonte Banks, which I thought had a highly ranked corner, but that wasn't really the biggest need. You needed playmakers in offense. I'm not fond of Jalen Hyatt coming in at the third round because his route tree is so limited. It's going to take a lot of coaching from Brian Daboll. If you can get Hyatt to ability to actually adapt to an NFL offense, that speed will then play. But that's going to require a lot of coaching from that coaching staff and a lot of camaraderie and work with Daniel Jones. It's a project offense right now. I don't think the Giants are going to sneak up a build. They're a very tough, rugged football team. They're still lacking that offensive threat on the bigger scheme of things. Can Hyatt be that guy? Can he develop into a number one receiver with that limited raw ability? But that's going to require Brian Daboll to really coach him up.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what they get out of him there. I was intrigued by Hyatt. I I won't lie, I wanted him in Cleveland. I got Cedric Tillman, which I'm not upset about. I'd like both of those guys coming out. But you're right, it's a limited route tree. They got to have more than just a go route or something, a deep cross or something along those lines. Jalen Hyatt, that's you get enamored with speed, man. You get enamored with speed, and he's got that top end motor that is going to be pretty darn impressive there as well. Um, let me throw one more. Let me throw one or two at you here, Fresh. Give me your intake on that. Let's go. Let's go over to Baltimore, man. What did you think of the Ravens draft? I was kind of by the time it was over, I was just like, meh. But again, they had a late first round pick, picked up Zay Flowers, and then don't pick again till the late third round. And what are you really doing at that point?
I mean, I think they built some depth later on, but the Zay Flowers pick was a home run. I think they are going to, between 1 year of OBJ, and OBJ is just, I think it's going to be a veteran tutor for Zay. You put the two of them out there. You got Lamar feeling great now that he has his contract. Uh, that's going to add a little dynamic to the offense. It's going to help him out a little bit.
You like Zay
But
over Addison?
I did like Zay over Addison. And just having that threat is going to help this offense a little bit. But like the Ravens have been, they're a tough, gritty football team. But if you bring Trenton Simpson at linebacker, you add him with Roquan and Patrick Queen, they might have the best trio of linebackers in the NFL. Three of them are going to play. The back end, the safeties, we'll deal with that later. But I think that they brought in another good linebacker to solidify that defense and lock it down. But as we've seen in years past, this team, regardless of who's on the roster, they're going to play gritty. They're going to play fast. They're going to hit you in the mouth. They're going to play tough. But they live and die with the health of the running backs. And if they can't get J.K. Dobbins and whoever else is playing running back to be healthy and not get injured in the middle of the season, the team kind of stumbles when that happens. If they can just get positive health in the running back position for a full year, any draft pick that comes there is going to be built in that Raven brain, and they're going to be strong going forward. Every time they get running backs hurt in the middle of the year, the team kind of just tapers off and falls away the past two seasons. That's the real key. Keaton Mitchell, undrafted free agent, might get in the mix there, become a running back there for the Ravens and help add some explosiveness. But overall, I think a solid Ravens draft. Nothing, they don't want to be too flashy. They just want to keep doing their business and just praying for good health when the season comes.
Yeah, I'm not going to hammer the Ravens. I didn't love it, didn't hate it. I would have taken Addison over Flowers. Again, year younger. I liked what I saw out of Addison a little bit more than I saw what I liked out of Zay Flowers. But again, tomato. We're both talking about, we're nitpicking here and kind of splitting hairs. So let's go over to the next one I wanted to ask you about, the Patriots. What do you think of New England's draft?
The Christian Gonzalez pick just fell in their lap. And I think Bill Belichick and that entire staff were just laughing. They're like, "Really? You're going to let this happen, guys? This is what you're going to do for us? Sure, we'll take Christian Gonzalez because I he I think Witherspoon, Porter, and him all could have been top 20 picks. And to see him sitting right there with Witherspoon off the board, that just fell right in their lap. They needed that. You look at the rest of the draft. Keenan White, I've been up and down on him. Some people had him late first. I kind of had him second round pick. The value is there. Edge rusher kind of fits in. The Manti Mapu pick from Sacramento State. He was, a linebacker, then became a safety, then became a linebacker. I thought that was a typical Bill Belichick, a small school reach pick late in third round, going to get a guy and trying to prove you're smart. I kind of was like, that guy could have been there in the fourth or fifth round. You're going in the third round to grab him. That's just typical Belichick. I'm smarter than everybody. I'm going to make this pick happen. And then, from there it was, you take a kicker and a punter. Sometimes, like I've said it before, maybe Belichick's purposely just trying to, sabotage the football team to make to make Bob Kraft pissed off. It wasn't an A draft. It wasn't an F draft. It was just a meh draft. Outside of Gonzalez, there are some questions, and it's really going to be a test to see, is Mac Jones the guy? Did they get enough around him? Can they protect him? And can the defense play at a high level for another year or two?
Yeah, my thing is, wow, did we overvalue Kayshon Boutte over at the beginning of last season. We talked about him being like in the same breath as some of these first round picks, and maybe he develops over time. But the fact they dropped all the way to the sixth round tells me that there's probably a lot that we don't know.
When you kind of think, I have a feeling there's probably a lot of dirt between the whole thing when Brian Kelly came in. He was like, I'm not going to play, or I'm going to play, I'm not going to play, I'm going to play. He's out for the season, but then shows up in the SEC championship game, has a nice little run, but then doesn't play in the bowl game. The commitment, I think, that probably is something that was going through all the scouts and everyone's talking about. What is his commitment to play? Is he going to be a head case? There's talent. We've seen it. We saw what he did at UCLA. We saw what he had a great year in 21. 22 was just more of a throwaway. And what are we going to get going forward?
Right. I really, and last two that I would go is like take a looking at the Dallas draft, not bad draft out of them. Maisie Smith, interesting. Our legal Eagle Kinger called that one, said he would be a first round pick. He really is high on him. And then taking the only other one is the Raiders draft there. One, just because Tyree Wilson's shirt at the draft, that's pretty awesome.
Oh, that suit was amazing.
It was. Getting Michael Mayer in the second round, getting Byron Young out of Alabama, Trey Tucker out of Cincinnati. I like their draft a lot. I think that Aiden O'Connell in the fourth is a nice, like, smart backup quarterback who's got a decent arm, not a great amount of size, but again, I like the Raiders draft, and again, I felt like the Cowboys draft was okay.
Well, speaking of the Cowboys, I like Shoemaker. Again, other tight ends are on the board. You stick with him. Whatever. I would have preferred Cowboys maybe go with somebody else, but that was their decision. They like the Michigan man. But the best pick that they made, Deuce Vaughn.
Yep.
I've loved him. He dominated K-State. And I'm sure everybody by now you've probably seen it, but that video of, if you didn't know, I'm going to say it right now, his dad is the assistant director of college scouting for the Dallas Cowboys. He's been doing it for years. Deuce grew up at the Star in Dallas. Jerry Jones knows all of them, been around the whole thing. And usually when the draft process goes down, the GM gets on the phone, calls in, gets the player on the phone, talks to him, and hands it over to the coach. In this case, they let his dad call him. And the first lines is like, hey, Deuce, you want to come work with your dad on Monday? Like that right there. I don't have kids, but sports is a child-parent relationship that is something you really can't separate, or a child-guardian relationship where someone has showed you this game, whatever game it might be, taken you to practice, helped you work out, helped you get better, sat on the couch watching TV with, and watching games, going to games, doing the whole thing. And seeing your dream come true and now going to work with your dad or your mom or whoever your guardian might be at the place you grew up at. This is one of the most special sports moments I think anyone probably embrace. And seeing that happen, it's not just a story. Deuce is a heck of a football player, and he's going to do serious work for the Cowboys. But both those are just what sports are all about. And that's just what you want to see. A perfect storybook, the way it all fell down. And I think Deuce is going to take off. Him and Tony Pollard in that backfield are going to do some good things for the Cowboys.
Yeah, I like the Deuce Vaughn pick a lot. A lot of value there in the sixth round. I know people are going to get stuck that he's 5'5", but again, folks, watched a lot of Kansas State this past year, and there's no problem with him being 5'5" and tearing up all Big 12 defenses. So I like him. I think it kind of maybe closes the door on Elliott coming back there too, because I had heard that he was going to take a little bit less money, but who knows? We'll see. But that's really all I got for the draft that are fresh. You got anything else?
A couple little things, just little tidbits. 11 quarterbacks taken the first 4 rounds. That just shows you the lack of depth at other positions, but also people are probably freaking out about the whole injuries, the quarterbacks, and the Brock Purdy thing. They're like, we got to get quarterbacks in now and get them in the system, or at least just see what we got and shuffle up and deal. So that was one thing. Was kind of just wow, quarterbacks flying off the board. Second, it's also ironic that the last college football game of the year was taking place in SoFi Stadium between TCU and Georgia, and Stetson Bennett gets drafted by the Rams, and Max Duggan gets drafted by the Chargers. They both play in SoFi Stadium. They're going to be seeing a lot of each other in that stadium again going forward. And I wouldn't be doing it justice if I didn't give a shout out to the Georgia Bulldogs. 25 draft picks in the past 2 years, 15 last year, 10 this year. Set the record for most picks from a school in 2 year span. Got a feeling we're going to have another 5 or 6 next year. they're going to keep rolling out big time numbers. And the Big Ten and the SEC, again, for what the millionth year seems like, 1 and 2 in draft picks coming out. Those two conferences, top to bottom, know how to develop and put out NFL players at a very high rate. Yes, Michigan, you had 9 guys taken. One was a kicker, one was a punter. I personally don't think that counts, so really only had 7 guys. But in the end, Big Ten and the SEC are just becoming NFL factories and churning kids out left and right.
Yeah. This was the 90th player Ohio State has put in the first round. Most of all time.
That's
it's insane.
ridiculous. I mean, just
USC is the next closest team at 85. And then, you take after we finish the book on 23 here, you start looking at 24 and you go, we got 2 quarterbacks right at that top of the draft, Caleb Williams and possibly Drake May. So we'll see how that goes, because a couple years ago, Spencer Rattler was the top of that. But I think both of us can agree Marvin Harrison Jr. is probably the biggest Cracker Jack prize in the 24 draft.
You're going to look, the 2 of them, Marvin Harrison Jr., Brock Bowers, Quinn Ewers technically is eligible. It really depends. What does he do at Texas this year? But those top 4 guys, you might see some teams start tanking on purpose, or teams pulling a Ricky Williams trade and trying to send a bunch of picks to move up the top 4 to make sure they get their guy. Because those are, at this point right now, they're difference makers, and they have a chance to really shine.
Yeah. Plus Kool-Aid out of Alabama will be eligible.
What he should show up next year to the draft is he should get the Kool-Aid Man outfit and just walk around.
Yep. That'd be awesome. All right, Fresh. Well, it was a fun draft. College football seasons, I guess. Is this I don't know if this is the end, this is the beginning. I don't know what I kind of consider the draft. I feel like it's kind of the end. I feel like the draft is the end, and then we're off for a few months, and training camp's the beginning. So,
yeah, I would say this is the end. This is a crescendo. Spring practices are done. You get like a 2-month, 3-month break, and then late July, media days, and then training camp.
Yeah. Well, we got to start working on our prep work for the off season. But guys, make sure that you don't miss another episode of the Irrational Confidence Podcast by hitting that notification bell. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast from. Make sure you leave us the 5-star review, because we're those 5-star prospects here. We got a lot of stuff planned for this summer, so don't forget, tune in. We'll make sure we put out a episode almost every week. Who knows? Maybe we'll put out a little bit more as we get closer and closer to the football season. Special thanks to our producer, Drew. Without him, none of this is possible. And guys, that's all I got.
Just keep hitting us up on YouTube, Spinable Sports YouTube channel, as well as spinablesports.com. Love to interact with you guys on social media, so hit us up on Twitter as well. And with that, bye, y'all.